This week's episode is brought to you by Andy Bovender of the Bovender team out of the Carolinas. Him and his team have helped more than 5,000 families. So if you have somebody who's been thinking about buying or selling a property in that area, they are the team to call. Today, I sit down with Aaron Kancevicius, and he talks about 1031s. Why is that important? Because this is a massive opportunity for real estate agents to be able to get in front of their clients and share helpful information to educate them on how they can leverage this opportunity. Now, I know you've heard me talk about the Inner Circle group, but I want to share that your net worth is equivalent to your net work. And so if you want to surround yourself with top performing agents and have the opportunity to share referrals, scroll down to the description below and click on the link and add your name to the wait list. And as always, I'm your host and San Francisco referral partner, Shawn Kunkler. Aaron, what's going on, man? Thanks for joining me today.
Thank you very much, Shawn. I appreciate the invite and very privileged and glad to be here.
I'm really looking forward to this. This is a topic that agents can absolutely make more money if they learn about, and that's 1031 exchanges. And there's just so many opportunities. So before we dive in and before we start unpacking all this, if you could, in a couple sentences, who are you and what do you do?
Sure. So we're what's called a qualified intermediary, doing 1031 exchanges nationwide. So anywhere from Hawaii to New York, literally, we do them in all 50 states. And my background personally is actually, I've been in mortgage finance for over 20 years. And just a few years ago, what happened is I went into a local 1031 qualified intermediary office to set up a brokerage for them because we have all these clients. They had all these clients doing exchanges that needed to buy properties. So anyway, so that's how I got into 1031 exchanges from that office. And we're the intermediary for 1031 exchanges for investors that are selling property. And they can do that tax-free when they buy the replacement property.
Unpack that a little bit more. What does what is it?
Qualified intermediary. Let's
intermediary.
Do this. To make it easier, we'll call it a QI.
Okay. What does a QI, like, when do you get involved? And then what do you help facilitate?
Sure. So first, a 1031 exchange is part of the IRS tax code. It's been there over 100 years. And It's really a gift, one of the few gifts that the IRS gives us, if we can believe it. Because normally when we sell real estate, we're going to trigger a tax bill.
Correct.
Now, if we have an investment property, we have all this gain on it. We don't have a primary exclusion on it. So we're going to pay tax on the whole bill normally. So the IRS, through what's called a 1031 exchange, will let us take that sale, reinvest it all into another property, and defer all that tax. Mm-hmm. Now, just understand how much that can be and why it's so important. If we just have this normal conversation with an investor that isn't really sure about this, and we just ask them, how much that capital gains tax is going to be, we always hear 15%. Okay, that's kind of the standard. We even hear that from a lot of real estate agents, right? It's just a common. I thought that before I started in the business.
Interesting.
So 15% is what we always hear is the capital gains rate. So here's the surprise everybody has, is that is just the federal capital gains rate. And that can actually be 15 to 20% depending on tax bracket. On top of that, they're also going to have the state capital gains rate. Now in California, we're privileged to live here. We pay for it. We're the highest one. It's 13.3% is our state capital gains rate. Now, each state is different. I have the whole chart of all the states. There's a couple states that are actually zero, like Texas and Florida, but we're at 13.3%. There can be a net investment income tax, again, for high earners.
Yeah.
The one that everybody misses is the depreciation recapture tax. So this investors had this property for all these years. They've been depreciating it, getting nice tax benefits from that every year. But when they go to sell it, the IRS is going to recapture and pull back 25% of that depreciation that they've written off. So it's basically up to 4 levels of tax, and it can be equal here for California residents, again, up to 30 to 40% of their total gain.
Are you serious?
So it's huge.
That's huge.
Yeah,
Like that's if you had any profits in there, they're just gobbled up.
they're completely gone. And how can you ever recover from that is the thing. We want our money to compound, all the time and keep working for us. But imagine
Yeah.
paying 30 to 40% of our profits and now trying to start over and catch that up. You can't put it into any investment and catch up what you just paid the IRS.
That's crazy. I mean, it's sad for starters for people to think that it's only 15%,
Hmm.
and then they wind up getting the bill, the real bill, and they're getting dinged. It's death of a thousand cuts.
Yeah.
It's as you shared. There's four in California that you're going to get whacked with. That's ridiculous, man.
It's crazy. And how much equity have people built up over the last few years? So we're having, a lot of clients that are selling, wanting to do something with this, maybe take it to another state or buy other
Yeah.
properties with it. And when they don't realize that, you have, some have $1 million in gain that they've got, which is excellent or more. But figure that $1 million gain. So they bought a property for $1 million 10 years ago. They're selling it for 2 million right now.
hmm
You as an agent did awesome work for them. They're happy. Next year, when they go to report that on their taxes, they're going to have to write a check for $300,000 to $400,000 to the IRS. And the IRS doesn't even give you a thank you bill for that or a thank you note.
Have you been completely neglecting your newsletter, social media, or any of your outbound marketing? If so, I have a solution for you. With little to no commitment, a virtual assistant can jump in and help you in those areas you just don't have the time for. For more information about hiring a virtual assistant, go ahead and follow the link in the description below. Yeah, that is true. I've never gotten a thank you card in the mail from them. Um, that is wild. And so, in executing a 1031, you were able to prevent from paying these capital gains by reinvesting into another like property. Is that a correct statement?
That's it. That's the correct statement. And that to go back to the QI question, that's where we come in. And so the nice thing with the 1031 transaction is, there's a lot of misconceptions around it, but a lot of people think it's mysterious and complicated. But the IRS just gives a couple of basic needs, and having a QI, a qualified intermediary, is one of them. It's somebody that makes sure the paperwork is set up while the property is being sold. It just has to be set up before the closing date.
Okay.
Okay, so first of all, but as far as the sale and the purchase, nothing's going to get delayed, nothing's going to get complicated. We set it up, and then escrow at the close of that escrow, they send the qualified intermediary the funds, the proceeds. So if they send them to the seller and it hits their bank account, the IRS calls that constructive receipt, or in layman's terms, you've touched the money, now you're going to get taxed.
Yeah.
So they send it to us. We hold it there in a qualified escrow agreement with the banks that we have. There's 3 levels of authorization that's needed then to wire it and send it to the next escrow to close on the replacement property or properties. It could be several.
And just really quick, 2 questions within that is if, let's say, someone has a subject property it's been leased, they don't live in it, they put it up for sale, it goes into escrow, is that too late to trigger a QI, or does the QI need to be triggered before you enter escrow? Hey, real estate pros, be honest. You know you should be using video, but maybe you feel awkward, don't have the time, or just aren't seeing the results. This is where Kim Rittberg's Video Bootcamp comes in. This live coaching program helps agents create high quality videos quickly and confidently, resulting in leads and clients. Her students have seen results. One landed 3 new clients directly from social media, and others brought in millions of dollars in closed sales. Spots are limited, and to apply now, follow the link in the description below.
Good question. There's a when is the last minute to do it question, and there's a when should they. So as
Good clarification, because
yes,
we usually do everything at the last minute.
exactly. So if they're signing their escrow paperwork, getting ready to close, and then realize they forgot to set up a 1031 or realize the need for it at the last minute, call us. We'll get it done. It just has to be done before it closes.
So, and then to clarify, a better time would be,
A better time would be when they're thinking about selling the property, probably haven't even quite listed it yet or getting ready to list the property. And we do free consultations just like this, whether on the phone or on Google Meet,
yeah,
because we go over all the questions, right? There's so many questions that start coming up. Well, what kind of property do I need to buy? How much of my money do I need to reinvest? How much is the timeline? How much time do I have to complete this? What do you guys do? What do you charge?
yeah,
So it's best to have a plan. We also need to find out who's on title, what type of properties they're thinking of, where. So it's best to have that plan. Like anything with real estate, we should be planning ahead. And
yeah.
we try to encourage that, to have some strategy sessions with us. So that's when they should. But obviously, it doesn't always happen in a perfect world like that.
Life happens. And
Right.
then let's say they put a property up, they're working with you, the proceeds come in, those funds go into holding your holding
Right.
account through your escrow or that escrow. And then how long, what's the window of time that the now new buyer, the seller, thus turns into a buyer, has to purchase a property to be compliant?
Right. So the day that closes escrow, that's the start of their timeline. There's two parts to it. First, they have to finish buying their replacement properties by day 180. So 6 months. That's
Okay.
when it's all done. And just a side note on that, if it falls on a Sunday or a holiday, it doesn't matter to the IRS. So they have to look at that ahead of time. We can get them
Are you
that date, of course.
serious?
Yeah, they have to close on a Friday, perhaps, if it's going to be a Sunday. Yeah, IRS is they give you this gift, but then they have their rules for sure.
Yeah.
And then now that's the overall timeline. Now the first 45 days of that is what's called the identification period. So literally by day 45, if you haven't closed on a new property yet, well, you can turn in a list up to 3 properties of any value.
Mhm.
Say, hey, these are my potential properties that I'm looking at. But then for the rest of that day 180, whatever you close on needs to be on that list in order for it to qualify.
Oh,
So
interesting. So if you
yeah,
find something that you did not add, you can't use it.
you can't go back and change it, right? That is correct. That would fail the exchange. So it does create, is what we start thinking about the market we're having. It starts creating some panic for some clients. Another reason we tell them to
Makes
talk to
sense.
us before they even list their property, because now you as the agent can be helping them researching possible replacement properties while they're under contract on their sale property, and be getting a strategy for that. So again, that 45-day window doesn't start till actually they close that escrow. So they need to be working on that ahead of time.
So then just from like a logistical process, if somebody, for example, owns a property, they find another property, can they proceed with the purchase of the new property even though the first property isn't even under contract?
That's excellent. Yes, there's a way of doing that. Now, stop me if I get too deep here, but in general, yes, you can do the whole process in reverse.
Okay.
So it is called a reverse 1031 exchange. Literally, you buy the property first. Now you have the whole 180 days to sell your property. So that's the
Gotcha.
real simple overall view. There's a lot involved in setting all that up, of course,
But it's
but
possible.
but yes, that can be done. And
Okay.
they've already, satisfied the replacement property, so there's no 45-day window now.
I mean, I've been a part of a buy with somebody selling a 1031, so I wasn't involved. It was just a property that was going through the process and it just gets disclosed, but I haven't done it. But it seems like from an agent perspective, this is a really phenomenal way to make money, to earn a living by just understanding this, and then understanding who the team is that you need to build around your client so they can execute and ultimately save a boatload of money while making
Yeah,
money.
that's exactly right. And that's why we're out here pushing the education aspect,
Yeah.
is because so many either don't know about it, first of all, or if they do, they just know little beats and pieces, and oftentimes a lot is kind of wrong, right?
Me.
Yeah.
I only picked up little bits and pieces from different office meetings or just things here and there. And that's why when I saw your name pop up, I'm like, I want to actually have this conversation because I'm lost in a city like San Francisco. There is, I think it's like 3/4 of the inventory is multi units.
hmm
So it is a huge slice of the pie.
Yeah, multi-unit properties make up about 40% of the total 1031 exchanges. So of course, multi-units, any commercial property, but then residential property makes up the bulk, still is making up half of the,
Really?
yeah.
And so to qualify for a 1031, what is the criteria for that?
So yeah, so within the, you're gonna love this, the way the IRS and the government names things. Um, they call it a 1031 or a like kind exchange, which
Okay.
is a horror. That's about the worst name possible they could have thought of, because what like kind is referring to is just you're selling one investment property, you're going to buy another investment property. So
Okay.
literally, it could be any type of property, and I can get more into that. But that's what qualifies it is you're taking a property that's shown as an investment on your tax return, even if it's just a very short time, doesn't mean you have to have held it for years and years. And
Yeah.
you're going to buy another property that you intend to hold as an investment property. That would qualify.
Okay, so let's make this like dumb it down for me.
hmm
Is I own a single family home as an investment. I sell that and I buy a 4 unit. That qualifies?
Absolutely does,
Okay.
yes.
So then I own a 4 unit, I sell that and I buy two single families with those proceeds. Does that qualify?
Absolutely qualifies, yeah.
Roger that.
Matter of fact, so it can be raw land, always qualifies. It could be
Okay.
multi-units, it could be commercial. There's even a couple of like passive income investments that are allowed. But just as an example,
Yeah.
what client of mine, we just finished this exchange. He sold farmland. It was like family farmland back in Illinois. Had just been
Okay.
sitting there. So they sell for $1 million. He has $1 million comes into the exchange account. His plan was, hey, let's turn this into cash flow. He bought 3 single family cash flowing units throughout the United States, all different
Oh wow.
states. Yeah, I think it was like North Carolina, Texas, Arizona, something like that. But yeah, so that's a perfect example of an investor using this gift from the IRS to better his situation. There's thousands of different reasons they can do it, but it's also an example of how agents can find business, thinking through their databases, just random conversations they're having with people, maybe even just going to properties and finding out who owns it, and just
Yeah.
starting this conversation with them. You don't need to be a tax analyst or a CPA. We just tell you a couple basic things about it. We have a calculator, a couple questions, and we're right here to help you out.
That's so interesting. And so to kind of clarify all of this is you're able to defer the capital gains tax until the final sale. Is that correct?
So we get asked that a lot. And here's the answer. Well, when's the final sale? So in other words, what's the long-term estate planning strategy?
Yeah.
So you only trigger a tax bill, of course, when you sell. So if we have investors with a portfolio and their plan is to pass it on to their heirs, which generally is, that's how large families have accumulated wealth for decades, right?
Mm-hmm.
Well, then this is called a swap till you drop strategy. You're going to keep swapping or exchanging, because when you drop and that passes on to your heirs, they're going to receive that real estate at a stepped up basis
Mm-hmm.
in the current value, which means that is now their tax basis as the new heir. All that last appreciation that you've worked hard for all your life and have built up, all that tax on that goes away. Now the heirs have the new basis. So now they only, if they hold it and get new appreciation and sell it, they're only going to get taxed on their appreciation.
That's a huge gift from the IRS.
Huge gift.
Holy crap.
And
That's wild.
Yes, and why do you think that this hasn't been taken out? It shows up in different, laws and bills sometimes, like they might axe the 1031 exchange or reduce it. But all those wealthy families, all the politicians, they've been using that. That's all part of their plan. They can't let it go.
Wait, so you're saying the people who fund the politicians have laws made in their favor? That's crazy. That's
yes.
crazy talk.
It is.
That's honestly, that's incredible. And so the misconception that I heard is that you have to keep flipping it annually to kind of keep this wheel going. Is that a total false statement?
It's funny. I've never heard that. It's usually people have an opposite misconception, but no, it's just you don't have a tax bill until you sell. And so
like
you can
sell and you put the money in your pocket.
Exactly. So whether you held it for 1 year or 20 or 30 years, doesn't matter. It's just when you sell, has it most recently been used as an investment property? Which,
Gotcha.
by the way, means if someone's living in a property and they have a lot of gain, a lot more than their primary exclusion, and they're planning ahead, they could move out of that property for a year, have it as an investment, maybe Airbnb it a little bit, then sell it, and now they get a 1031. But that's just a side, getting into the weeds part of this.
Interesting.
Yeah. So what most people, the misconception with that 1 year that most people have though, actually, is they feel they have to, let's say they buy an investment property today, they've heard or they've read or they just assume they have to hold it for a year or two before they can sell it and do another 1031 exchange. And that's really, I know where it's coming from. But it's a false narrative. It's a little bit of a gray area. The IRS just says your intent is that you're going to hold it as an investment property. In other words, you're not a property flipper. Okay, so if you go buy a home, you're just going to remodel it and flip it. That is not holding for investment, and the IRS would probably fail that exchange if you tried.
Gotcha.
But there are people that, obviously this can happen a lot. You might buy a property, you're fully intending to hold it and rent it out, but you realize it wasn't the right one, or you found a better one in another neighborhood, what have you. Mm-hmm. And sure, we've had plenty of clients sell in less than a year and 1031 it again into another property. And you just got to be able to show the intent if the IRS ever asks.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
I mean, it just kind of always goes back, regardless of what the market's doing. Real estate is a really solid and long-term investment. Like if you're trying to do it in and out like a flipper, super risky. But if you're buying and holding, this strategy just further supports that narrative.
That's exactly right. Yeah. And it actually reminded me of the point as far as you mentioned the market, what it's doing right now in the last few years. Of course, everything's been a little bit stuck, right? That's my economical technical term. I had to say it's stuck. A lot of people waiting on the sidelines, waiting for rates to come down or something to happen.
Yeah.
But in the meantime, after a while, and the market was about 2.5, 3 years ago, everybody stopped. We even had exchanges where people just stopped in the middle of it and didn't exchange.
Really?
Waiting. Yeah, some just paid the tax bill, others backed out of everything. Everybody kind of stopped for a while. But guess who kind of got back in the market after a while? It's investors. And so Realtor.com shows last year nationwide, the total as a percentage of all the real estate transactions over the whole country, just under 15% are investment transactions. Now that's nationwide. They say that's the highest ever.
Wow.
Now, here in San Diego where I'm at, it's at 25%. It's like 24.8, something like that.
That's insane.
Yeah. And where you're at there in the Bay Area, I believe I've seen that's around 20. So you have all these areas that are, popular, people want to be in, a lot of investment activity. Well, It's because investors need to get back to work. They've had a property, they've had maybe for years, they've had plans, they need to move on to the next, get their cash flow going, get it in a better spot, what have you. And they're slowly, now some investors obviously are still waiting on the sidelines as well. I talk to plenty all the time. But there are those that are back in the market because investors have more than just one property, obviously. You're not talking
Correct.
about your first time buyer that's going to buy, hold it for 9 years, then resell. You're talking about somebody that might have 2, 3, 4 more properties,
Yeah.
and you might, and they're going to sell, they have to buy something at the same time, and then they're going to come back and do it again in a year or two or sooner. And so, yeah, there is all this extra opportunity just being aware of it.
I completely agree. I mean, from the agent perspective, is again, if we're talking about San Diego, 25% of what's being traded is through 1031s. And if you can become that educational piece, that's a pretty healthy cross section of the market that you can also gain access to.
That you can get in front of. Yeah, absolutely. And just to clarify, it's 25% are investment properties. They're not all doing exchanges.
Oh, gotcha.
That's why we're out there explaining this. Are you not exchanging because you didn't know about it, because you didn't understand it? Maybe there's some other reasons. There's always reasons maybe why they shouldn't. That's fine.
Yeah.
But yeah, there's a large segment out there that's doing investment properties that need help from agents and from us as QIs. And so that's what we try to help out with agents is being aware, and it can really set you apart. For instance, if you're on a listing appointment with somebody that's and you just ask a couple questions. Is this an investment property? Is part of it an investment property? Maybe they can do part of it. But just knowing those questions to ask and not being afraid that it's going to ruin the sale. In fact, it's going to set you apart as an agent because nobody else would be talking about it when they're in front of the seller. Yeah. This is a property maybe they had in their family, and we see those scenarios quite a bit. Oh, it's been rented by my mom for 20 years and we just want to sell it, get rid of it. And now the agent can just stop and ask, well, that's fine, and I can help you do that. What are your plans with the proceeds? Do you understand what your tax bill would be? Okay, just a couple basic questions is all. And it'll at least get that discussion started. And then we're always here by the side to answer questions and help out. But it helps set you apart as an agent, and you can start again thinking of perhaps others that you've talked to in the past that maybe things have been skipped over. Now the reinvestment requirements. Here's another part that can help out is a couple of requirements that the IRS puts on. So you're supposed to, when you sell, then as a 1031, you have to buy equal or greater value than what you sold in order to defer all the tax. So you sell for $1 million, you buy for $1 million. As I mentioned with the farmland client, that can be several properties. So one property or several properties. So here's another misconception that gets missed is, so a lot of clients, they hear that and they think it's an all or nothing proposition. So you as an agent are sitting there in front of your seller, hey, what's your, you realize you're gonna have a big tax hit. Yes, we do, but we just don't want to spend another $1 million. Well, they don't have to do all of it. They can do a partial. They might tell you, well, we need some cash out. Perfect. Just one simple follow-up question by the agent can be, well, how much cash are we talking? Is it $100,000 to pay off some bills? Well, why pay $100,000, $200,000 in tax just to get your $100,000 that you need? So they can take their $100,000 out of the sale, just pay tax on that, but exchange the rest. And so that's right. I just hate seeing people pay unnecessary taxes. And when we explain that to them, it's like, well, instead of having a $300,000 to $400,000 tax bill, let's get you your cash.
Yeah. Let's
lower that down as much as possible and let's re-put it into something else. Again, we have over 16 different property types we can be looking at. Let's just get it into something to keep that working for you, lower your tax bill, and not take that huge hit. And so that has opened up. I've personally been able to help many real estate agents with transactions they weren't expecting. Just because either the client wasn't going to exchange at all, or one we're finishing up right now, the client wasn't going to buy enough property because he didn't want a new loan in order to bring the new price back up to what he's selling. And
Makes sense.
which is fine. That's a partial exchange. He was still going to have a tax bill, but I just reviewed with him again the tax hit, even on that, and reviewed the options he'd have. And lo and behold, he's buying a second property with his realtor, like an Airbnb. They're using what they had in the exchange account, putting 50% down, using a DSCR loan. It can be an Airbnb property. And
Smart.
that realtor now has a second transaction that he wasn't expecting. So there's a lot of these, different scenarios, and it's just being aware of it is what I'm just trying to help agents do. I know, some take it full on and run with it. Others, it's just good to know as they come up, that's fine.
Yeah.
But yeah, there's just once we start talking to clients, just having those conversations, wow, all these possibilities sometimes start popping out.
Yeah. I mean, and if you do even just a quick research on the individual, if they're owner occupied, it's not going to come up for this property.
Right.
Whereas you see that it's being held in an LLC, or you see that it's a multifamily building and they obviously don't live there. It's, to your point, just ask a couple more questions, and and you don't even have to have all the answers. Just ask a couple questions and say, you know what, I think this could be an option for you. I'm going to give you a name. I recommend you give him a call.
That's right.
The agent doesn't have to have all the answers, and nor should they. They just need to know the right people to make the introduction to kind of carry to the next piece.
Yeah, that's exactly right, Shawn. Yeah, that's just same way they're not going to sit there and prepare their tax return for them. They have the specialist for that. And
Exactly.
and one other step, this is what I just did on the phone yesterday morning, was with the agent called me. He was telling me the scenario. He was on his way out to the client's house, so he just called while he was there. We do conference calls, and that's a really nice way too, because then we're all on there as a team, and the client feels really good, about everything. Everybody's on the same page. We all have our questions answered. We have a nice strategy going forward. And, she's not quite listing her place yet, but I think she has 2 places she's going to be selling. But again, it's a nice way to be prepared ahead of time, start strategizing, and there's no surprises. And the agents learn a lot doing that as well.
Yeah. I mean, as an agent, you already have your lender in your back pocket. You have your escrow officer in your back pocket. Like, you have the team structured around the client to help the client's needs. And you as an agent, you have to have these other contingency team members for when these situations come up. So it's just smart. It's good practice. And especially, again, if you're in a place where there is even just a normal amount of these opportunities. Like, I'm in a place where there's a lot of these opportunities, but even if it's just like a normal base, you should have these options, because it's opportunity to help a client. And ultimately, when you help them, you get paid. And that's, at the end of the day, that's what a business is. Otherwise, it's a really expensive hobby.
Yeah, that's exactly right. Yeah. Yeah, helping the client in this case, it's clear, the agent is going to get paid again, but helping them, I mean, if I just handed you $300,000 right now, I mean, you'd just be, stoked. I mean, so
yeah,
it's real.
I'd be pretty happy.
And you tell your friends, you tell all your investor friends, and that's what's happening is when we show them, hey, you don't have to hand that $300,000 away to the IRS. Let me show you some ways we can do it. Now, guess what? They have all their investment friends. Later when they start talking about it, they're going to say, hey, actually, I did mine through, Shawn, who's kind of the expert on it, even though you didn't know all the details of it. But it's like a niche, right? What was the old saying, the riches and niches? So you have this as like a niche. If you're, once you're in there with a few investment deals like that, you become the go-to person, and they'll keep calling back for years to come. It's really amazing.
And usually that I found in this industry is, well, 2 things. One, investors tend to know other investors.
Yes.
That's just the nature of the water seeks its own level.
They hang out with each other. Yep.
They totally do, because they're trying to learn from each other and learn, like, hey, so-and-so did this, don't do that. And you're like, okay, I'm not going to do that. And so, I've been in part of groups where people evaluate properties together. And so if somebody has a great resource, that name absolutely gets shared. And then the other part of it is investors don't usually just buy one property. They're investing. And so they're looking
Exactly.
to do it over and over, and they're trying to leverage things up. And typically you start small and then you trade up and then you're a little bit big. It's like it's the game of Monopoly. It's like you trade the houses for hotels. That's the name of the game.
That's exactly, yeah. They're trying to compound what they have, and they know the game or they're learning it, and then but as that cycle continues, what's interesting is they're trying to grow it. Then after several years, then they're trying to start consolidate it. And what's amazing is the 1031 exchange still comes in with that, so they can take, you find if you find these investors that do own several properties, and some just want to stop being landlords, or they might start thinking, how can I get one really nice house that I want to use, right? Perhaps it's their dream retirement home. Well, what if they sold, three or four properties that they had, found that beautiful home, bought it, just use it as an investment property for the first 2 years, show it on the tax return as an investment, then move into it. That's the best practice for that. You haven't triggered a tax bill because nothing's sold. And if the IRS ever comes back and asks, there it is. Your intent was to use it as an investment property, and it shows there on the taxes.
Wow. All right. That's a good one, man.
Yeah,
Um,
there's different ways. So they can consolidate. They can definitely go up, but they can also go down. So they might, you have the new ones that are starting out. They might take a property that's appreciated a ton. They sell it. They buy 3, 4, 5 different properties. We see that all the time. But then the reverse is true as well. They might take several properties and just put it into one or two that they really like or are easier to manage. Or maybe it's an Airbnb and they can use it a little bit of the time. That's another discussion, but their personal use has to be limited. But yeah, there's all these different arrangements once you know the client's situation, that this actually comes into play. And it's amazing. You're just taking one tax concept that's been archaic and boring and only presented by attorneys, just by showing you all the IRS regulations and not really explaining it. But there's all these concepts and strategies that can come out of it, just by being aware. That's all it takes.
oh, that's so good. I didn't realize that you can turn an income property into a residence after a 2-year trigger with the initial intent of being an income property.
There you go. That's the key. That's the key with everything with 1031s. What was the intent? Intent's the main word. Yes. Now, clearly, you've deferred taxes if they're ever selling it later for some reason. They got to consider those back taxes. But at that point, from what we just described, that's usually their last home, or they're planning on it being their last home.
Yeah.
And again, if they ever needed to sell it, they could do that strategy in reverse, move out of it for a year, rent it part-time, make it an investment property again before they sell it. But yeah, so it's there. Yeah, we just need to know what people are thinking, right? What clients are thinking about, and they can usually be helped out.
I mean, I think that's one thing that I've learned in life is the rich know how to ask for help.
There you go. Yeah, they're
Like,
not ashamed to ask.
yeah, and they just hire really smart people who know these things and they educate them on implementing and executing these strategies. And of course they have the means to actually do it, but they have the access to the resources because they know to ask questions or build the right team who then triggers the additional team members.
Yeah, correct. Yeah. No, I couldn't agree with you more. When I think of my consultations, we're doing these all the time, 15, 20 minutes on the phone. Yeah, those are the folks that ask the most questions and keep you on the phone the longest. They want to get down to every detail. They want to know every strategy, even if it doesn't apply right now. They want to think about it. And yeah, it's very true. It's those that have the means. Well, there's a reason they have it. It's
They're careful.
Yeah,
they're not just like, it's fine, we'll just spend it.
that's right.
No, they're strategic. And yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, again, San Diego, San Francisco, these are the bar of entry is pretty darn high just out of the gate.
Oh,
And so
that's
if
right.
you're holding 3, 4, 5, 10 properties, that's a significant portfolio pretty quick.
Yeah, it adds up pretty quick. Yes, indeed. Yeah, and it's a challenge sometimes finding those replacement properties here. I am sure it's the same there. It's
Yeah.
in our area, anything under Well, if it's residential, anyway, anything under 2 million is still getting outbid and, multiple
Yeah.
offers. So, but that's where, our clients that are in the reinvestment stage, we're warning them that ahead of time, hey, have your realtor helping you ahead of time. You can be making offers while you're under contract on your listing, hasn't closed yet. They always wonder, can we start doing our replacement property now? And we tell them, yes, for sure. We know what the market is out there. Just start making contingent offers if you find something you like.
Yeah, we're in a really tricky market because we just don't have the inventory. And so it's just but to your point earlier, if you can then open up and literally buy in any state, then
why not?
You're bound to find something. Like there's something somewhere.
Oh,
and and then again, you hire the right property manager and the right infrastructure.
Yeah.
And it's just another part of your portfolio.
In some of these states, again, we work with so many investors on this, of course, and we see so many different scenarios. Some have found in certain states where they have kind of like a package deal. You buy the house and it's already built in with a tenant and a property manager and that kind of thing. Because of course there's a lot of trepidation perhaps being, a distant landlord, but there's a lot of packages and ways and specialists that specialize in that type of thing. Whereas, so again, I think from the agent side, if you're thinking, you might run across some of these, is you're just doing a little bit of research, you'll find that there are specialist agents in certain states where they have really good rental markets. Yeah. And they kind of package it all to where it's hands off for the landlord. And those have been great opportunities for 1031 clients. Again, they're selling a property here, they're taking $1.5 million, $2 million equity and buying several, in these other states. And they're getting appreciation because, some of these are $300,000-$400,000 homes. They can buy 4 or 5 of them and they're appreciating quick and the rents are good. I'm amazed how the rent market has gone up everywhere. We used to think, oh, well, if it's too expensive in California, move out of state. But I don't know if if it's that easy anymore. But as a 1031 client now, that's good. It works really good in the favor of your client.
Yeah.
Yeah, because they know they can get a good return there on their investment.
Well, and I think what's interesting about that, and it's not my realm, but it seems like each state is slightly different, obviously, and their markets are moving in a different pace. So it seems like a good way to diversify your portfolio by having properties in different locations. Because, for example, if you're in all your properties are, let's say, in one city in San Francisco, and then something happens there, the market takes a nosedive. Everything bundled together is taking a nosedive, but simultaneously, Austin can be popping off. And so if you had multiple properties in different markets, you can essentially stabilize some of your income.
That's an excellent point. Yeah. I've seen a lot of investors doing exactly that. Yeah, just spreading it out, makes a lot of sense. Appreciation wise, just everything. Is to spread that out. Some between even different asset classes, some have jumped into, and I'll just mention this a little bit because again, we're, as residential agents, it's not up to you to try to steer, and you can't steer actually with these, but there are a couple like triple net lease properties, and there's DST, which is a Delaware statutory trust, and it means they have a small percentage in large commercial projects, and those are like Amazon buildings, public storage, there's university housing, there's just tons of different projects, but those are allowed in an exchange. That's just the reason I mention it as we're talking about diversifying. And it's because you do actually own a percentage of the property. You're on title of 0.0123%. But those are bought through, securities. They have to show you the prospectus, what the percentage is. But for those clients, those maybe, more along in years that have had rental properties and don't want to be landlords anymore, those are options as well. They can put them into passive income options, or maybe at least some of it. Maybe they can buy, one home or one type of rental property and then use some as a DST, just used to help lower that tax bill. But these are just more good things for, for agents just to be aware. We don't sell them at all.
Wild.
Yeah. There's great. So we see that kind of diversification. We see clients selling things going into like these dollar dollar store, properties, but they're triple net properties with the leases on them. And that's fine for a 1031. And if those ever sell again, they can 1031 it again, put it back into a single family residence if they like.
Wild.
So yeah, so it's a lot of diversification, a lot of possibilities open up. Just understanding those possibilities, just knowing that it's there, helps out quite a bit.
I mean, again, it goes back to the earlier point, is like, just know that there's options available and ask.
That's right.
And like the it's not even the worst. You'll just get information. Like, you'll find out, no, this doesn't qualify. And you're like, okay,
there you go.
Got that.
That's it. That's what I tell ones all the time. Like, hey, we can't sell anybody anything, right? Like, everything I'm doing is just educating. It's like, don't feel bad about scheduling your client on the phone with us. All I can do is let them know exactly how everything lays out. Here's how your situation looks. Here's your tax bill. Here's some options. This is what you have to do. Now, what they do with it is up to them. But why not get, at least the decision you're making is based on the facts and all the options that are there.
Yeah. I mean, it's not dissimilar if I needed knee surgery. Like, I want to go to an expert and ask all the questions and figure out what are all the potential outcomes and solutions and what are my options. And then I'll make a decision based on that information. Yep. To change gears slightly, what's the biggest mistake or misconception that real estate agents have with the whole 1031?
So, that real estate agents have. Yeah, that's a good question. So there's misconceptions and there are a couple mistakes. But as far as the misconceptions, I've talked about a couple of them. One is the like kind property thing. So I tell people, get that vocabulary just out of their system. Your clients don't have to buy the exact same property that they're selling. It can be any property type. The other part is on the cash part that I mentioned. They can take cash out. Or best yet, they can exchange their whole property into a new one, and then after that's closed, go get a cash out refi. If they want cash, because now there's no tax on the mortgage.
And then
proceeds.
It's a tax free.
Yeah. There you go. So it's just being aware of that, and again, to me, I see realtors that do a great job. You're focused on getting the sale. You don't want anything to get in the way of it. And I totally get that, because you're under so much pressure, deadlines, contingencies, all this stuff's going on. But just ask those questions about the exchange and the taxes. We'll take care of it. It's not going to delay your sale 1 second or hold anything up. Mm-hmm. But yes, it would be the cash, the property types. Mistakes I see is some misconceptions about not buying enough, thinking that they only have to reinvest their gain. Okay, so somebody bought a property for $500,000, now they're selling for $1 million, and they're thinking, "Wow, I'm going to take that and I'm going to buy a $500,000 house, mortgage free and clear, and just live off that. And now it's tax free because I reinvested my gain." And so, again, that's where we have to educate. You actually have to replace what you sold, right? So you sell for $1 million, you got to buy for $1 million. If they have a $500,000 loan on the property, that means probably they're going to have to get another $500,000 loan to make that happen. Unless they have cash, to replace the loan with, that's totally fine. And even though the rates are 7%, I know they're a little lower now, but it's worth it. Do you want to pay a $200,000-$300,000 tax bill, or pay a little bit higher interest rate and keep all your money working for you? So those are some of the misconceptions, and those are things. And I have no problem talking about that, again, because I have over a 20-year mortgage background.
That's a nice ace in the hole.
It's a nice ace in the hole, and I know what they're talking about. They're like, "Well, I don't want to get a 7%." I hear this all the time, Shawn, and that's how I just got that realtor a second transaction. That's what he was telling me. He was selling. He sold a duplex in San Diego for 1.2, 1.3. Yeah. He had maybe a $300,000 loan. So he was and he's buying on the East Coast. He had it lined up to buy a property around $900,000. He just wanted to be free and clear. I don't want a loan, if I get another $300,000 loan, it's like 7-8% right now. So I said, well, that's fine. You can do that. You're at least mitigating some of your tax. But you realize on that $300,000, you're going to pay about $90,000 to $100,000, right? Because it's 30 to 40% in California. He's like, "Oh, I thought it was only going to be maybe 40, right? He thought it was going to be 15%. but I don't want the 7 or 8%. I'm like, well, would you rather pay 90,000 or 100,000 in tax, or pay a little bit higher interest rate that you can write off anyways on your rental property? Oh, yeah, he's buying that Airbnb condo back there right now.
Yeah, it's, man, those taxes, they're relentless.
Yeah,
but I would, to your point, I'd rather pay I'd rather pay a little bit more for the money than lose the money by just writing a check to the IRS.
That's right. Yeah, and it's just gone again. You get nothing back for it. You can never recoup that.
Never.
Even if somebody thinks, I'm going to invest it into some special stock market tip I have, but you can't make up a 30-40% loss.
No, and especially if you have multiple properties, like you're just going to you're behind the 8 ball. Like you're just going to get deeper and deeper in the hole.
That's right.
Man, this was so informative. Like this is not something I was proficient in, and I feel like I at least have a bit of a grasp of it. More importantly, I know who to call. If an agent has questions and they want to reach out to you or a client, what's the best way for them to find you?
Sure. So they can find me on LinkedIn. They can email me at aaron@1031specialists.com. And of course, Aaron is spelled with 2 A's, Aaron, and it's 1031 Specialists, plural. Online, we're 1031specialists.com. And then we have a 1031 phone number, 631-438-1031. So really easy to remember there.
Good branding, super easy.
we try. We kind of do that for our own sake. Myself trying to remember it, so that helps.
That's fair. I don't know if I remember a single phone number other than my own. There you
go. Not anymore, yeah.
Aaron, I appreciate it. This was, again, very informative.
Well, thank you very much. I really appreciate the time again, Shawn. And that's what we're doing, is out doing the education. So thank you very much.
All right, man. That is a wrap.
All right.